Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Omnipotents School podcast. This is episode 2, and episode 1 was a year ago. I said in the last episode that episode 2 was going to be about the character backstories, and I would post it after season 2 is done. So now that the finale's out, I can finally make this episode. So, we're going to be talking about the character backstories. So, let's get into it. So this guy you see on screen here, Okay, first I have to explain something. There's this thing called the experiment. So, the experiment is a series of experiments that are given to different people in this episode in Medieval Massacre episode 2. This guy says on the screen, he says that this little experiment thing can help people get rid of their sickness. Future Celestial here. I forgot to mention what the sickness is. So the sickness is like some sort of like disease. Yeah, disease that's like spread. It can okay. The sickness can spread through people. It can like spread around and like get a bunch of people sick, and this sickness is like no joke. It's like a really like bad sickness to have. Like all the symptoms that are explained by the guy in Medieval Massacre are the symptoms of the sickness. So yeah, basically that's what the sickness is, I guess. It's the origins are unknown, but yeah, it's a sickness that's spread throughout people, and they can get it cured from this thing. So if we look here, this guy, I mean, this is an ad. This video is like an advertisement for this. So it says $1,000. You're in Houston, Texas. So basically, this guy is like the head scientist. He's like the main scientist working on these experiments. So he made this advertisement so people could come in and they could step in these pods and they could get tested on. But obviously they don't know that. They think that they're just getting their sickness cured. And this guy on the screen is like, he's like evil basically. So he wants to run these experiments on people without them knowing. So he gets them to step into these pods. And like this guy, you can see he looks very weird. He's like his skin is like very like, it's a different color. It looks very weird. So that was kind of like hinting towards what would have happened to the people who took the experiment. And for most people, it actually cured their sickness. Like, it actually cured the sickness that they had. Like, they're not coughing anymore. But the major side effect is that they end up not looking like this, but looking like way worse than this. Like, their whole, not only does the color of their skin change, their whole face disappears. They don't have a face anymore. So this guy's evil, and he wants to run experiments on people. So he makes an advertisement to get people to come and do this for him without them knowing, of course, what's actually happening. So anyways, a guy named John Abraham Adams finds this ad, goes in here and takes the experiment. You can see he's in this little hospital gown thing. This is John. He's about to take the experiment. Why am I saying? He's Mr. Taste Powers. Okay? This is him before he took the experiment. So the experiment, like, made his face disappear and it made his skin color change to blue. This is what he looked like before the experiment. He has a beard and everything. This is what he looks like. So his real name is John, as said in season 2. His full name is John Abraham Adams, and he has the sickness, of course. So he needs to take this experiment. So he needs to step in this little like test pod right here. This little pod hooked up to all these machines. And once he goes in, it's gonna cure sicknesses, and he's gonna like come out good as new. So there's someone else with him. His name is a secret as of right now. But this is Crosswing. So this is what Crosswing looked like before the experiment. Also, I forgot to mention something. I mean, as you can probably guess, this takes place a very long time ago. Like, just look at the images. Like, obviously, this looks very, like, old. This takes place in, I believe, let me actually double check. This takes place in 1942. This takes place in 1942. So, this experiment took place almost 100 years ago. And these people are very, very old. So here's Crosswing and Mr. Taste Powers. They're going to take the experiment. And their lives will be changed forever. So, Mr. Taste Powers is like, he's like, are you ready? And then this guy in the darkness is like, get in the pod now. And he goes in, they turn on the machine, and this gas starts filling up the pod. So this gas is what, triggers the transformation. So he's like screaming for help, I guess. It's either one, very unpleasant, or two, they told him what was actually gonna happen when he got in the pod. I don't really know myself, but he's screaming for help. He's like, help me. And then the gas fills up, and then some time goes by, and then he steps out of the pod. The pod opens up, and he falls out. And there's like people running everywhere. There's alarms blaring. And then the scientist that was in the advertisement is just shot someone. There's people just running, hiding. He just shoots this guy on the floor that looks exactly like Mr. T. He shoots him. He drops dead. And then the scientist shoots at Crosswing and Mr. T's powers. But luckily, Crosswing has metal wings now, so he blocks it instinctively. He didn't mean to do that, but his reflexes kicked in and he blocked the bullet. And so Mr. Day's powers then takes his opportunity while the scientist is reloading his gun. He lunges at him and he pins him on the ground. He's like, what did you do to me? And he just laughs because this was his plan all along. He's evil. Then he just punches him to death. Then he goes on a rampage. He's filled with rage. He just kills all the scientists. All the scientists that were there. As you can see in the background, the lab's also crumbling at the same time. The lab is literally falling apart. Because basically, I need to explain something. So there's different, like I said at the beginning of the video, these experiments are a series of tests. This isn't just one thing. This goes on for multiple times. So this specific experiment with Mr. Day's powers and Crosswing, this is the first series of experiments. Like, this is the first, like, session, basically. Like, this is the first one where all the people gather up and go in the pods. So, I guess they've only ever tested this. And this is the first time they've actually done it. So the lab is crumbling. Like, it didn't go as expected. Something bad happened with the pods or something. And basically, they ended up in the lab just falling apart. So, this specific experiment with Mr. D's powers is called AA11. Experiment number AA11. So, Mr. D's powers, basically there's numbers and letters assigned to each person. So, Mr. D's powers would be experiment AA11. So, the overall experiment is called, like, A1, I'm pretty sure. Like, this first experiment is called A1, and then Mr. D's powers is also called A1, so it's experiment AA11. And then crosswing would be like, you would be like test subject number B2, so it would be, crosswing would be AB12 or something. And then the different experiments that were held later on, like years after this, were called like C3 experiments, C3. But this is A1. Mr. D's powers was like the first one to go in the pods, basically. He's AA11. So, anyways, yeah, the lab is crumbling. He kills all the scientists. As you can see, there's dead. The lab is falling apart. Then, since the lab is just falling apart, Crosswing's like, we have to get out of here. And so, they leave through the exit. As you can see, there's a bunch of other people here with like their skin like changed colors. There's like this guy in the left, like holding the door open. He's like injured. He's like green arms. These are a bunch of survivors, basically. There's this one guy behind Crosswing who has like a metal horn on his head. And then Mr. D's powers sees Mr. Evil Man. This is, yeah, Mr. Evil Man in the red. And he's still tied down to the pods. He's still strapped down. Like, he didn't get untied, basically. So he's like, help me, you can't leave me here. And then Mr. D's powers is like, he's just shocked, like he can't do anything. And then he ends up getting crushed by the rubble. And then years later, obviously, in the season 1 finale, Mr. Evil Man reveals this, kind of. He teases it. So he says to Mr. D's powers, he says, you let me die. Mr. D's powers goes, why would you do that, you monster? And then Mr. Evil Man goes, you think I'm the monster? You let me die. And he's referring to this years and years ago when Mr. Evil Man got crushed and Mr. D's powers was just staring at him, doing nothing, just standing there. And Mr. D's powers, obviously, he got his, like, memory erased. Well, he got his memory erased 2 times. So basically, in season 2, obviously, we know his memory got erased, in season 2, because the Omni Orb wiped everyone's memories. But before that, before season 2 happened, everyone's memories still got erased. So after the experiment, it had some other side effects. Right after they took this experiment, it wiped their memories. Not immediately though, because obviously Mr. D's powers knew the scientist and he killed him. But it was like, it was slowly going into effect. So after they took the experiment, their memories were erased. Like, after they escaped with like all the survivors, they just didn't remember anything. Like, they were just they escaped and they were in the middle of nowhere and they just didn't remember what had just happened. And like they look at themselves with their like green skin, and they're like, I guess I was always like this. So they do not remember what happened. And that was like a safety protocol, I guess. A safety thing. So the test subjects wouldn't remember what happened, so they wouldn't like, you know, rat out the scientists and like get them like arrested and stuff. So they get their memories erased after this. So Mr. T doesn't even remember that he killed these people until the season 2 finale, where he has that flashback and the memory just unlocks and he just remembers it. But Mr. Evilman didn't forget. Mr. Evilman was like an exception. He didn't forget. He still has his memory, and that's why he has this lifelong goal of just killing Mr. T. He has this lifelong vengeance to just kill Mr. T. He just wants revenge. He just wants to get his revenge at last against Mr. T. So after this, after the experiment, Mr. T, after they escape, they go, basically there's a forest out here, right? So this is an underground lab, by the way. This is like underground. So that's why there's like rocks falling down and stuff. So they escape, they leave the building, and then they end up in a forest, just in the middle of nowhere, in just a random forest. And then Mr. T just sits down, and he sits by a tree, and he's just like, what the heck just happened? And the memory wiping is still taking effect, so he's like slowly, his memory is getting foggy over time, and he's just shocked at what he just did. He's like, oh, I just killed those people, what did I just do? And Crosswing's also there, next to him. Crosswing's like, yeah, whatever. So, blah blah blah, he says some stuff. And in the season 2 finale, at the start, when Mr. T wakes up from the flashback, he talks to Crosswing, and then he basically explains, and it fades to black, and then he says, and then there you were, sitting next to me by a tree. And so that's what that line was, because they were in a forest, and Mr. T was sitting by a tree. And Crosswing, I remember what he said now in the moment. Crosswing was like comforting Mr. T. Crosswing was like trying to calm him down. He was like saying stuff to comfort him, because what he just did here. So then their memory gets just erased, and they have to just find their way out the forest. So obviously they end up finding their way back, somehow, some way. So they live their lives as these experiments, as these blue people. And since there's a whole group of survivors here, there's other experiments that take place years down the line. Basically, there's tons of experimentators. Like, there's other experimentators like them. There's like hundreds of survivors because of all these experiments. So fortunately, they're not all completely alone. You know, they still have some other people that can relate to them, and that's how the Omnipotents were formed. Because all the people in the Omnipotents are experimentators. That's how they get their superpowers. Also, I forgot to mention the most important thing. Of course, this is how they get their superpowers. The experiment wipes their face off, and it gives them superpowers. So Mr. T got stretchy powers at first. Like, when he first took the experiment, it gave him stretchy powers. And then later on, he had to discover his main power, which was being able to absorb any power. So basically, at first, he had the stretchy power, and then secretly, he had the power to absorb any power that he comes across. So he didn't know that. So over time, you have to like gain these powers. Um, and then that's where his catchphrase came from. Sometimes powers I got. And then Crosswing obviously got metal wings. He got like his bones like transformed basically into like these like wing structures, like bones grew out of his back into wings, and then they were coated in metal. They were like covered in just this strong metal. So in the pod, it all happened in the pod. Um, so Strong Dude also took the experiments. He wasn't part of this specific one, this experiment A1. He wasn't part of the first one. Like I said, there were more experiments later down the line. So Strong Dude and like the other people, Powered One, Techno, Mad Max. Actually, I'm gonna get to Techno and Mad Max in a minute here, but yeah, Strong Dude was a part of one of the later ones, so he wasn't here in this same room at the same time. Um, Obviously they repaired this room after this experiment. They like repaired it. They got like a new scientist and stuff. Actually, I said he killed him. I said Mr. T killed the scientist, but as I mean, I guess well he punched him in the face really hard, like a bunch of times, and then the whole place collapsed. So he would have died. So I guess I mean either they replaced him and got a new head scientist, or he just ended up living somehow, which I mean, how would he survive this? But yeah. And then Mr. Evilman got the same powers as Mr. T. He was able to absorb anything. And then the first power that he got, like Mr. T, the first power that Mr. T got was the stretchy powers. The first power that Mr. Evilman got was the spike powers. And then they both had to like learn how to gain new abilities. And then yeah, just Powered One was part of the later experiments, like everyone. But people like Quickster and Core, they're like teenagers. They're like really young, and the experiments didn't keep on going forever. Like they stopped a long time ago, like maybe in the 70s. Like I don't know when, but the experiments stopped for good at some point, and it stopped before Quickster and Core were born. So like, how did they become experimentators? Well, when an experimentator has a child, that child is, well, that child is gonna have no face. Like if the experimentator has a child and they have no face, then the child will have no face as well. So that's how Core and Quickster came to be. Like their parents, or at least one of their parents, were experimentators. So that's basically how, yeah, they started. So, and then Techno and Mad Max, there's something special about them. So, Techno was actually like not a good person back then. Of course, Techno didn't remember it, but okay, you're probably really confused. Okay, Techno. Okay. I gotta start from scratch here. Basically, the experiments needs to be funded somehow, right? The experiments needs to be funded. So this guy's just a scientist. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have like the rights and like the permits to like build this lab and like do these cure these sick people, quote unquote, cure these sick people. So they need people to help them. So that's where government authorities come in. So people from the government, like I don't know government terms, but like just generals, I guess, is one word, like government officials. They they can like basically oversee okay. 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 What I'm trying to get at is, okay, basically the government authorities know that these are experiments. They know. They know that they're not actually trying to cure people and that these are just sick experiments. So the government authorities basically they oversee the entire operation. Well, they don't. Yeah, basically they oversee. This head scientist is still like the head, right? He still runs the experiment part, but he runs that part, that specific part. The rest of it, like all the numbers and the all the little details with the, just stuff that would come with any sort of experiment, just like numbers and like money costs, like I don't know, some sort of informational stuff, like information, like the government authorities run that part. So they help this head scientist basically. They also want to get these experiments done. So these government authorities basically, oversee this stuff. So it turns out that, all these government authorities would be rich. They would be rich people. You know who is also rich? Techno is also rich. What I'm trying to say is Techno was like the general who is overseeing this experiment. Yeah, Techno himself. Techno, the cyborg green guy who's part of the Omnipotents, was the general who was overseeing this entire operation. He was up here on this little balcony, like up on those rails, just watching the whole thing go down. And obviously he escaped later. And you might be wondering, well, how did he turn into experimentator if he was like overseeing it? Like, well, he ended up taking the experiment some way, somehow, somewhere, sometime. He ended up becoming an experimentator himself, and obviously he didn't remember what had happened. So he doesn't remember that he was a general overseeing everything. And someone could have forced him to take the experiment, or he could have just volunteered. But either way, he ended up taking it, and yeah, he lost his memory, and no one knows about his dark past. And then Mad Max is kind of similar. Mad Max, instead of being like a general who oversees it, he was a scientist. He was a scientist, and when they were running the test, obviously they have to test this stuff to make sure everything goes smoothly. Obviously, the first actual one didn't go smoothly, but they wanted to make sure that it did. I guess they failed, but they still needed to test it either way. So obviously they didn't know it was going to fail. So when they were testing the experiments, before the experiment A1, when they were testing, they needed test subjects. They needed human test subjects because this is designed for humans. So one of the scientists who worked on the experiments volunteered himself to be one of the test subjects. He volunteered to be the test subject for this. And that scientist was Mad Max. Mad Max, long ago, volunteered to be in the experiments as a test subject. And that's how his face disappeared. That's how he turned into experimentator. And unfortunately, he didn't get any superpowers. So he basically just got the bad side effects. He wasn't even sick either. He got the worst of the worst. He didn't get any superpowers. It didn't cure any sickness of him. It just made his face disappear. And it also made him like crazy. It made him like cuckoo in the head. That's why his name is Mad Max. He's a mad scientist. He's like literally crazy. The experiments made him go insane. So luckily he retained his intelligence. He's still smart and able to construct things, because obviously he was the scientist who worked on these experiments. So he's smart, and that's how he was able to build mechs in the future. But he still lost his memory of what happened in the experiments. Like, he doesn't know about the experiments because he lost his memory, but he still has his intelligence and stuff. So he was like a guinea pig. He was not a guinea pig, because he volunteered, like, willingly. So that's Mad Max's backstory and Techno's backstory and all the experiments' backstories. Oh, almost forgot. Shadow Knight. Shadow Knight was also sick, just like Mr. T's powers in Crosswing. He was sick, so he took the experiments. It wasn't in this room, A1. It was in another experiment later down the line. But why I'm bringing this up is because his story is a bit unique. Well, he has a specific backstory, so I'm going to talk about Shadow Knight. I don't have any images for Shadow Knight right now. I'll also have to edit it in later, just in the edit. I was hoping I didn't have to edit this. I don't want to edit this stuff. It's already 30 minutes long, but yeah. I don't have any images right now. So Shadow Knight, basically, yeah, I'm just going to use this image because it looks like Shadow Knight. It's not, though. Shadow Knight took the experiments because he was very sick. Then when he took the experiments, he got cured. Life was happily ever after. Wrong. He was still sick. He took the experiments, but like everyone else got cured except him. He was still sick. He was still just as sick, if not even worse. He was even more sick. He was basically like, bro, he was super weak. Okay, he was super weak. He got even more sick. He was like terminally ill. And he got his face removed. So he got the worst of the worst. He didn't get any superpowers either. Luckily for him, he was a skilled warrior, or he knew how to fight. So there was this book, right? This ancient book, this ancient story, this ancient legend, this ancient myth that was floating around. And he ended up coming across it. Shadow Knight read it. And it said there is this ancient, mysterious power that lies in a castle somewhere. This ancient power has been kept in this castle for centuries, and it has never been touched by anyone. It is in a secluded area. No one knows where it is. It is guarded by knights. And Shadow Knight read this, and he was like, mysterious power? And the power was, well, a power. It would grant the user like special abilities. And Shadow Knight ended up digging deeper, and he ended up coming across another thing, basically, of explaining how the power works, explaining how to use the power. And he gained the knowledge of how to use the power. He researched it for so long because he was terminally ill. He would do anything to get better. He would do anything to, because this was the 1940s, so there was basically no other way to cure this terminal illness. So years and years later, he went to this castle and got the power, as you saw in Medieval Massacre. He obtained the power, and the power is a very mysterious power. No one knows where it comes from. And he ends up taking the power, and since he gained the knowledge of all that, he spent years researching it. He spent years looking at myths, asking mysterious people about these legends, and he gained the knowledge of how to use this power. And these powers were like shadow powers, so now he knows how to use them, and he ends up getting teleported to this wasteland, and he has a bunch of power now. And he got healed. He feels much better, and he literally fell like hundreds of feet down and landed on the ground, and he survived. So obviously, he's healed now. Like, he can heal himself. So then he comes across this barren wasteland, and he's like, "Oh, what the heck is this?" And he ends up wanting to fix it. So he looks at this Omnipotents tree next to him, this giant tree next to him, and he gets inspiration. He's like, "Oh, look at the giant tree. Maybe, what if I make a tree of my own?" Because he knows how to create life out of shadows. That was the knowledge that he gained, how to use the power. He can create like life. He can like just out of shadows. He can like, yeah, basically. He's like a necromancer, and he can like create life out of shadows and stuff. So he creates his own tree, because trees are like life, basically. So he creates his own like shadow tree. Also, because the sun is like kind of burning him, so he makes the tree so it would cast a giant shadow, and like the sun wouldn't hit him. So he makes the big tree, and he just goes around making these trees. And I guess this shadow power that he has isn't enough to fix the wasteland. It's not enough. So somehow, yeah, it cured him. It made him powerful, but he still can't fix this entire land. So he has to take the power of the Omni Orb. He has to use the power that he gained to try to get the power of the Omni Orb to fix it. Because I guess he knows about the Omni Orb. I mean, I guess everyone would know about the Omni Orb. Like, world famous superheroes protecting the Omni Orb. Like, they would probably know about it. So Shadow Knight knows about it. Shadow Knight knows about the Omnipotents. And, well, you know how the whole story went. You know, Shadow Knight tries to get the Omni Orb, and then his plane fails and the island explodes. So, all that happens. Shadow Knight dies, by the way. If you didn't know already, the island exploded, Shadow Knight died. Like, obviously he died. There's no way he's surviving that, but, yeah. You know, I said the power is like a mysterious power. It's not that mysterious. I'm going to explain it right now. So the power that Shadow Knight got, that purple power, is the infection from all events. From Doomsday's series, all events. It's the infection. That's why in the finale, in the chapter called Atop the Tree, Shadow Knight like transforms his fist into like this weird like gooey like purple substance, and he punches Strong Dude, and it plays the same sound effect as the infection. The intention there was for it to be the infection. Like, it's literally the infection. So it's not the infection, like, it's not the same version, basically. It's not like the same version of the infection that was shown in all events. It's like another version, basically. It's like a dormant, unactivated version of the infection. Like, that's why Shadow Knight didn't, because the infection like mind controls people, and it like takes over their bodies and minds, and it turns them evil. But since this is like a more like, I don't know, just another version of the infection, I guess. It's like an earlier stage of the infection. So it doesn't mind control Shadow Knight immediately. But as time passes, this version of the infection, it you know, it starts to take the form that we all know and love, and then it mind controls Shadow Knight, and then he's able to use like these infection abilities. So yeah, the shadow power is basically just another version, kind of, in a way, of the infection. There are some signs that it was the infection. Like, there was like black goo around the shadow trees, like the shadowy ground creeps were like made of like black goo. So that was basically like the infection. The shadows was just another form of it. So the shadow power was just a lie. It was actually the infection. And if you're wondering how the infection got in the castle in the first place, well, ancient years long ago, centuries ago, the infection came to the Earth, I guess, and these ancient people were able to capture it and hold it, and they were able to discover its true nature, and they didn't want people going near it, and they held it in this castle for ages until Shadow Knight came and stole it. So, yeah, that's Shadow Knight's backstory. Oh my god, we're still not done. My mouth is dry. Hold up. I need, I don't have, I'm gonna take water break. Take a sip of water, bro. My mouth is dry. My mouth is dry from talking. Okay. We're recording for 40 minutes. Jeez Louise. Anyways, now I can finally get to Kingpin. Kingpin, here. Oh my god. Okay. We're finally done talking about the experiment. Are you happy? Are you happy that we're finally done talking about the experiment? Now I can finally get to some interesting stuff. Kingpin's backstory. Kingpin is not... He doesn't have anything to do with the experiment. Yeah, he doesn't have a face, just like the rest of them, but that was for another reason. So, Kingpin is an alien from another planet. He's not from Earth. He's an alien. He's purple. And there's this temple, right? So, okay, basically, on this planet, they believe in a god, like they believe in like the golden god as their deity. So there's this temple that's called like the Temple of the Gods. So there's this Temple of the Gods that they like go to like pray to these like golden god deities. And when Kingpin is there, it turns out there's some like murderer guy. He doesn't actually look like this, by the way. He doesn't look like a guy in a Nike hoodie with a bandana on. Like, that's just a placeholder. He looks more menacing, trust me, like in reality. But yeah, there's this guy who's basically killed Kingpin. And then in Kingpin's dying last breaths, he said, "Someone help God." And then in his dying breaths, he prays to his deity, right as he's dying. And then it turns out that, oh, Golden God shows up. The real Golden God appears. "I am the Golden God, and I grant you the power of a god." And so that's why in the Portals episode in season 1, Kingpin says, "This is the place I died," because he died in the Temple of the Gods. This isn't where it originally was, obviously, but the Temple of the Gods was on another planet, and basically it crashed. It broke apart or something, and it crashed down in like some meteorite to this island. So the Temple of the Gods is here now, and it's like, this is the place I died. So yeah, and the Golden God grants him the power, and Kingpin's like, "Oh my god." Oh, and by the way, the Golden God power like removes his face. Don't ask how or why, it just does. But yeah, Kingpin becomes super powerful. He becomes powerful, and he like heals, and he like revives himself, and then he ends up just beating up this guy that tried killing him. So now he has the power of the Golden God, and he's super strong now. But what he doesn't know is that this is actually a curse, not a blessing. So he actually ends up having to become Golden God's herald. He has to work for Golden God now, and he has to do what Golden God says for the rest of his life. And if he doesn't, well, something bad might happen. He might die again, or he'll lose his super powerful powers, and he doesn't want that. So he has to listen to what Golden God says all the freaking time. So yeah, that's Kingpin's backstory. Is there anything I'm missing about Kingpin? That felt pretty short. Kingpin. There is... Well, I guess that's not really his backstory. That's his future. It's coming up in season 3. I did not just tease season 3. Yeah, that's Kingpin's backstory. And then... Oh, well, I guess I should explain this. So, he ended up forming the Omnipotents. In the recruiting videos, like Kingpin recruits Mr. Spowers, Kingpin recruits Strong Dude, like those recruiting videos, basically, Kingpin, I don't want to explain why he formed the Omnipotents. Like, I want to explain that in another time, but he ended up forming the Omnipotents. He ended up recruiting all the members and forming the Omnipotents, these super powerful superheroes, for a specific reason. And Doomsday, if you leak it, I'll just delete your freaking comment. Okay. Yeah, he ends up forming the Omnipotents, and then he leaves for a mysterious reason. He leaves the Omnipotents, and then Mr. J. Spowers becomes the new leader. So that's Kingpin's backstory. My mouth hurts, bro. I've been talking for 45 minutes straight. This is gonna take like an hour to upload to YouTube. I'm sorry, guys, for this long episode. I'm sorry you have to sit through this. Just put it on 2x speed. It's fine. You can just put it on 2x speed. Because I'm not gonna go through all this footage and cut it out. Okay, I'm not gonna cut out the silence, unfortunately. Toodalooties. Omnipotents episode 2. I have no idea what episode 3 is gonna be. Or like, what could episode 3 possibly be about? I don't know. But yeah, toodalooties, guys.